I want to echo a few things I heard, but also it's easy to say that these are worker owners and that they own the business. I mean, so we all own the business. It doesn't mean that I have much say-so as an individual, and I think that's an especially important position to be in when you're actually trying to make your living working. They're more vulnerable than the rest of the owners because anything can happen that would endanger that position. I am not for or against the idea of a union per se, but I just want to say that the union is not going to solve all the problems that got us to this point. I don't know the answers to these questions, but I know that they must be under there somewhere, which is, what is the grievance procedure? How does a worker go about finding out how they get remedy for a problem without endangering their position? You know, how long notice does somebody have to be given that they did something that has put them at risk of losing their job before that job actually is lost? I think that the asking for the union has brought us to this point, but those are all things that ought to be solved going forward. If those can be solved in a reasonable and cooperative way, we will be much stronger than if they get solved by an adversarial process where at the end of it we are forced to, you know, have procedures which ought to have been on the books in the first place. Thank you.
Curly hair and glasses, which I don't. There, yes.
My name is Renee. I'm a member and an investor, and I want to say I grew up singing union songs, and I was actually a worker owner of a food co-op in Washington, D.C. in the 70s. The problem for me isn't, I mean, it's curious that a co-op workers would want to form a union. And I think that the problem might be the issues underlying what brought that about. And that's, I don't know. But obviously something's rotten in the co-op. So I think that those are some of the issues that need to be heard. I'm very concerned that people raised their voices and were fired or forced to resign or whatever. This is the first time I'm hearing of it, but it's very, very disturbing, and I think it's very important to hear from them what their issues are, what's the grievances, why are they feeling like they're not being treated right and not having a voice. And as far as the stealing the list, I think that everybody here has a right to communicate with everybody else here. I don't see that as anyway, but I don't want to accuse people of doing things. They have a right to have their voices heard, and I think all of us have a right to hear that. That's basically all right. And one other thing is that maybe there needs to be some sort of other way of working around grievances that's a little more touchy-feely.
So I just want to real quick before you move on, if there's how many things are left on the stack?
At least 15.
Okay, those 15 stacking things are going to need to turn into comment questions because we've actually got to the point in our discussion where we need to have 60 minutes of open Q&A unless people feel really strongly that we need to finish those comments and not take any more. Do we want to make a decision on that, or do we want to make a decision on that?
Yes.
Okay. If you want to finish out the comments, finish out the stack on this discussion, raise your hand. It's hard to count. It seems like we've got to. Okay, and then if you would not like to do that and just move on to open Q&A, please raise your hand. Okay, so we'll finish out the current stack, but then at that point we'll move on to the open Q&A because there are a lot of questions in here. So.
Lisa.
I would like to, can you tell me your name again?
My name?
Yes,
Jeremiah Tattersall.
Jeremiah. I appreciate what you said about the importance of how the board addresses, the worker owners and setting a tone of, I forget the word that you used.
Cooperation or
Cooperation.
adversarial?
Yes, or adversarial. And, you know, I feel that's very important, for them to treat us, you know, myself as a manager, that way as well. My perspective on this is, you know, I just started in February, and it was really hard for me to not take this personally Tuesday morning, you know, being met with these worker owners, expressing concerns that in some of the cases I've tried to discuss with them or tried to address, and really had no idea that some of these things that some of these questions were there, that some of these issues were unaddressed or were unresolved. And, you know, the format of the co-op is that the worker owners are to, you know, bring their grievances to management, and the worker owners also have the worker owner, you know, representative seat on the board of directors. And so I hadn't been brought any grievances, and also the worker owner rep hadn't brought any grievances to the board of directors. And then I'm just being met with demands. And so, you know, again, it feels hard to not take that personally. However, I recognize that problems are long-standing.
Rochevanese?
I'm Susie. I'm a former worker owner, also the board representative, the very first board representative. And I just want to share my perspective that even from the beginning, there's always been resistance to the worker owner seat on the board. And it was always, my experience of always sort of being shut down. And then you can be here, but if there's any discussion about wages or anything that may matter to the worker owners, you don't have a voice and you don't get a vote, which never really made sense to me. Because it's like the one vote. And to refer to what Marty said about the sense of desperation, I think it's really sad that this is a co-op and that this is where we're at. That we're not cooperating, and that's what's happening. And that's why the employees are asking, the worker owners are asking for a union, because there hasn't been cooperation, and this is year 3. And I was there, an original employee, which there aren't even any anymore. So I think that says something too, like, what's the turnover rate here, you know? I think 4 of the original worker owners were fired out of 9. So, yeah, go union.
And I had to put myself on stack earlier. I was just going to say, I don't really think that any of the member owners should, I don't really care how they feel about a union in the co-op. It's the workers' decision, because they're the workers. Nobody else understands what's going in the shop, and I really think it's kind of irrelevant for everybody to be like, I'm against a union. It's not up to you. Like, it's the workers' choice. And I just think that we should all respect the workers that run our co-op, because, you know, what they say is important, and everybody should just, like, trust them, you know. Just saying. Okay, and Rob.
Well, thank you for your comments. I must say, though, that it is, in fact, by the Articles of Incorporation and the bylaws, something that concerns all the members, because they all own the co-op. And, you know, people may disagree about that, but that's what the facts are. And, you know, the question was raised, are we hiring a union buster or attorney? Frankly, I've been reaching out to friends of mine who know labor attorneys. I want to clarify, this isn't an attorney that represents management. These are attorneys who represent unions, just to try to get answers about the unique situation, because normally a company that's confronted with a union organizing effort, the employees are not legally described as owners. And in fact, it could be, I don't know, we have not actually been able to talk to any lawyers. And by the way, the attempt is going to be pro bono. It's not like we have money to spend on lawyers. If we need to get into fighting with lawyers and litigation and NLRB, et cetera, it's going to force this co-op out of business because we simply do not have those kinds of resources. Anyway, so we're not hiring any union busting attorneys. The people on this board are not anti-union. I knew who the Wobblies were, the industrial workers of the world, back before I believed any of our current worker owners were even alive. It's not that way. Yet we are tasked, the problem I see is this, it has now gotten divisive. And I'll give you an example. The letter that Lisa has handled said at the beginning, we demand. And then it finished with, in the spirit of cooperation. Well, if there's truly a spirit of cooperation, you don't start it by making demands.
Sarah Sorbonne.
Hi, I'm Sarah, and I'm a producer, member that used to sell at the co-op. And first, I would like to officially recognize Kathy and Julie, who were amazing in working with us as producers, particularly Kathy, who dealt with us during the horrible pet food only and my occasionally obnoxious business partner that I know gave her a hard time. When I look at you, I see the heart of the co-op, and it breaks my heart what happened to you. And I think you need to be recognized. I do want to point out that as a producer, and I can speak, I'm sure, on behalf of the other producers here, we don't do what we do to make money. We do what we do because we believe in it. We believe in community, we believe in justice, we believe in equality, and we believe that there's a better world and a better way of doing things. I know that the consumers that shop at the co-op, they don't do it because they're getting a bargain for their money. They spend more because you believe in a better world and that there's a better way. And the investors who I learned today are actually donating back their dividends despite the questionable fiscal lack of transparency that's going on in this co-op. You do it because you believe in something better. And so when we try to build this better community, it is our responsibility that when members of our community are being disenfranchised, that we need to speak up for them. And as far as the board, if you're not on the same page, then you're not on the same page with community. And if you need to hire or get an attorney, whether they're pro bono or not, to fight the union, then you need to recuse yourself from the board because you do not stand for the principles of the community that Gainesville has. We have an awesome community. We have an amazing thing that we can build here. And if you're going to stand in the way of that, then you need to dissolve the co-op so we can start again with the right principles, the right labor policies, and the right practices. Because other than that, you're nothing more than a capitalist enterprise that's operating under the scam of a nonprofit, or I guess you are, an incorporated cooperative. Because as far